What's the most scariest paranormal activity you or someone you know have ever experienced? When I was about 14, I was sitting in front of the computer on a Saturday night. The computer was against a wall, and on that wall was a big framed picture. I randomly looked up at the picture and saw the reflection of a man with long brushed black hair wearing a white shirt and black pants. And he was just standing there staring at the ground. Instant panic. I looked away and looked back, and he was gone. Then I felt a rush of air go past, as if someone had walked past. I ran out of that room into another room where my parents were. But I didn't say anything to them. I didn't think they'd believe me. A few months later, my sister asked if I had ever seen any ghosts, and she told me she'd seen a ghost in her room and described him to look exactly the same as what I'd seen. We told my dad, and he said he'd seen him too, but never mentioned it as he didn't want to scare us. We never saw him again, but would see weird shadows every now and then. My sister and I also mentioned an uneasy feeling we felt walking down the hallway of our house, like someone was following us. I had felt that feeling for a long time, but had never mentioned it to anyone. We didn't know where this ghost had come from, as our house was a newly built house, so we didn't think it could be someone who maybe died in the house. We came to the conclusion that he was attached to a vintage dining table we had in the house, because once we got rid of it, the uneasy feeling never came back, and we never saw any shadows or ghosts. I don't know if this next one is supernatural or not, but it was flipping weird. At the beginning of 2019, there was a day where I was at home, and my brother and his girlfriend said they were going out to run errands. I was home alone, in my bedroom, which is at the back of the house, not a big house, but still furthest away from the front door as I could get. I heard the front door open and someone shuffle in, and what sounded like someone drop grocery bags on the ground. Then they shut the door and left. I assumed it was my brother dropping off groceries on his way to do other things. When I went to the front door, there was nothing there. I asked my brother later if he did return home, and he did not. Another time, I was in my bedroom and I heard my mom come into the house and yell out that she was home. I assumed she had yelled out and then went straight to her bedroom to get changed, but when I went in there, she was not home. A similar thing happened another time too, but I can't remember exactly what. The three occasions happened within a few weeks of one another, and I have no explanation except that my mind was playing tricks on me. But it was very strange, especially with the one when I thought my mom came home, as her routine is to yell out that she's home from work, and usually she will walk through the house when she gets home and say hi to everyone. I first visited the Philippines when I was 6 with my mom. We stayed at the old house she grew up in. Wooden, 2-story and very creaky. It smelled of mothballs and banana trees, and always of home cooking. It was inviting and warm to me. The first night, I was relaxed and didn't think anything of it. We slept on a bed, my mom, little brother and I, on the second floor. There was another bedroom where my aunt was sleeping as well, so I felt safe and surrounded. It was only when it started getting cold, I started to get really scared. The Philippines is hot AF, like humid and sticky. It was hurricane season, but it was still terribly hot, and for someone from California, it wasn't something I was used to. I slept hugging my mom, facing her with my brother in the middle. I felt a strong draft and felt my skin start to prickle and get tiny bumps. Cold, I thought. Then through my still closed eyes, I could see the very dark room get lighter and lighter. I refused to open them. I closed them tighter, but whatever it was coming closer because I could feel it get colder. The light was like a cell phone coming closer to my face. I ended up at a half wince, scared and curious, and as I did, I was able to make a faint figure of a face just inches from mine. A woman. Whispering. I couldn't understand her. She was whispering in Tagalog. And it seemed like she was closing in on me, closer and closer. I could see her eyes, her mouth. I must have squeezed my mom hard enough or dug my nails into because she woke up with an ow. And I started crying. My aunt turned the lights on and I told them what happened, and they sort of sat in disbelief. It was the only dream I had when I got there. Surprisingly enough, I was okay after that. Apparently didn't affect me the entire time I stayed there. Very weird. We have a superstitious belief here in the Philippines, or in the town I grew up at least, that when you're new in town and going to have a sleepover in an old house, the unseen residents will greet you. There's a lot of comments on this post already, so I don't know if anyone will see this, but felt like sharing because it's creepy as heck. My boyfriend's dad's house is right across from a graveyard out in a rural area of Texas, between Moody, Texas and Bruceville, Texas. Been told by other family members that the house is haunted, but I never believed it. Until one night, I woke up randomly around 3 a.m. and looked around the room. In the corner of my BF's room, I saw a little boy staring at me. I immediately cuddled up to my BF and didn't open my eyes until morning. When I woke up, I told his family all about what had happened. That's when his brother told me some of his eerie stories. One of the stories he told me stood out to me because it's creepy AF, so I figured I'd share it too. He said the room he used to stay in got hot at night, so he'd go sleep in the living room. One night, he walked into the living room. The living room and kitchen are both open to each other, to see a little blonde girl in a pink dress standing on the counter. He talked to her for a little bit and then went back to bed. He said when he woke up, he told his mother what happened and she said, "Sean, I had a dream last night that I woke up and went into the kitchen to see you talking with a little blonde girl in a pink dress standing on the counter." I have since talked to his mom about it and she remembers this as well. Creepy AF. Back when I lived in residence college dorm, I swear I was being haunted. The residence was actually a hotel that was converted into a student housing during the year. I think I've only told one person about this, as I don't believe in ghosts and am usually a skeptic. There were a number of unsettling things about this room that I've blocked out of my memory, but here's what I do remember. I would find handprints on the outside of the glass. I lived on the 11th floor. I would wake up and feel pressure on my chest while I was lying in bed and find it hard to breathe. As I was a student, my laptop was frequently open and left on. I would come back in from taking out the trash or some such small chore and find something written in the search bar or on an already open Word document. One time, the search bar read, "I have no mouth and I must scream." I lived in a single and never left the door open unless I was in the room. Maybe someone was fleeing with me. I'm sure there are possible reasons for everything I experienced, but no matter how much I rationalized it, I always felt like I was being watched in that room. I sometimes wonder if my classic first-year mental breakdown was helped along by this presence. I lived less than a block away once I moved to an apartment, and thankfully these issues didn't follow me there. I lived with my cousin for a few years, and his house always scared the heck out of me. The least scary thing was the day I was upstairs in my room and he was downstairs in the living room. We were talking, small house, paper-thin walls, when I heard him coming heavily upstairs. He's like 300 pounds of muscle, shakes the stairs going up and down. So I looked at my door for like 15 seconds, waiting for him to come in, and eventually ask why he's standing on the stairs. "He's not, he's on the couch." I said, "You were just here," he said, "I thought you were coming downstairs." He was waiting on me to come in the living room. I woke in the middle of the night there a lot. Usually with my heart pounding out of my chest. One time, the room had a blue hue to it, like from a TV screen. A person-shaped thing of what looked exactly like TV static straight up walked through my bedroom door, right past my bed, and disappeared when it got to the wall. It didn't do anything malicious that I'm aware of, but I was terrified the whole time, like full-blown panic attack because I was frozen. Couldn't move, couldn't yell, but the vibe I got from it the whole encounter was that it very much wanted me to know it wasn't friendly. Then there was the time the hall light was on outside my room for some reason. I woke from a dead sleep, heart pounding again, from nothing more than a really bad feeling. Again, couldn't move, couldn't yell. I'm scanning my eyes around looking for whatever it is this fleeting time, but can't see anything, which makes me panic more. Then a person-shaped shadow peeks its head around my door from the hallway and ducks back like it knows I saw it. Then I see a few fingers wrap around the door trim like it's resting a hand there, and it peeks around again real quick and ducks back again. It does this a few more times before I will myself fully awake, I guess, or at least able to move, and when I snap back to reality, I realize the hall light wasn't even on. Early 2010s, had a good old Apple iPod. It was my mom's compromise to an iPhone, who was I to complain? It was a first generation or so. Mom probably found it cheap, second-hand. I was just happy to have it. I had to show I wasn't addicted though, and had to form habits of setting my phone down often. Meaningless fact? No. Because I'm telling you, from the core of my existence, I rarely carried my iPod room to room. That's why when Siri started talking to someone else, I knew I wasn't alone. A small house, thin walls, only my mom and I. And 2 cats, but they don't know how to use Siri, WTF. I'd go to the bathroom, I'd stir dinner, retrieve homework from my bedroom, and Siri from the next room, "I'm sorry, could you repeat that?" Sometimes she'd repeat garbled phrases, "Is this correct?" Then one night, hooked to its dock stereo, it refused to play music. It refused to give me solace in the dark. The stereo's bright blue light was non-existent. It tried very hard to put something else through the speakers. Panicked, too terrified to know what was to come next, I tore the iPod from the dock and threw it down. I waited a moment in the dark, scared to move again. Then, cautiously, I picked up the iPod. It felt warm. I took it to my mom. "I think it's broken." Really spooked me. "Just leave it on my desk," she replied, eager for me to go back to bed. I walked across the room, offhandedly mentioned it kind of felt warm, set it down, and it combusted. I like to chalk this one up to a fritzy iPod, but it was the tip of the iceberg of spooky stuff. It affected my mom's cell phone too. It was by far the most haunted place I've been or lived. Never really had an experience that was obviously supernatural, but I have had some things that stick in my mind that I don't have a definite reason for. 1. One night a few years ago, I was up late watching Netflix on my phone. It was probably like 3 or 4 a.m. I'm about to call it a night and try to sleep. At this point in time, my bed was parallel against a wall on the opposite side of my bedroom from where my door is, so the door is sitting right about at the edge of my peripheral vision. Out of the corner of my eye, I see a very tall shadowy figure stretching about the height of the doorway, so like 8 feet, with very long and very thin limbs. Only for a split second, because my eyes immediately dart to the door and it's gone. Obviously most likely a trick of my brain, but it sticks out because of the immediate panic that overcame me and the adrenaline that followed. Usually when I see something out of the corner of my eye, I get a little startled and move on. The second I saw this figure, I was in 100% fight or flight mode, and my heart was beating so fast I couldn't hear anything else. It took me about an hour to calm down and actually get tired again to fall asleep. 2. For about a week this summer while my sleep schedule was being destroyed by quarantine and my bad habits, I was going to bed at around 3:30 in an attempt to not completely give over to the nocturnal lifestyle that did not work out so well. Every single night for about 10 to 15 minutes right before 4 a.m., I would get this horrible sense of dread and I would kind of freeze up like a little kid. One night, like the third night I think, I could have sworn I felt 2 knocks on the baseboard of my bed right below my feet right about when I got the feeling of dread. Every night, I would end up getting up and walking around and getting a drink of water before returning to bed, and then it would be gone. After 5 days, it completely went away and I haven't had anything like that happen since.